I am rolling.
Okay, me too, but I just put something in my mouth, dang it.
It's alright, I'll let you chew while I lead us off.
Yeah, but this is my show.
Hey everybody! Oh, what?
Just when I guessed you could not sink any lower, you're listening to the Rish Outcast. Well, you've kind of made your bed, haven't you?
Hey folks, this is Rish Outfield, and you are listening, sort of listening, to the Rish Outcast. I say sort of because Big and I apparently have not resolved what show this is. My special guest today, if this is the Rish Outcast you're listening to, is B.D. Anklevich, author, podcaster, and what is it that you always say? A bastard? Or
Something like that, yeah.
what is it that you have on your blog?
On my blog?
Yeah. Does your blog still say, what a douche?
Probably. I don't know. I only update that thing, the About Me or whatever. I only update that like once every 5 years or so it probably does.
Yeah, it says, Big Anklevich is a writer, podcaster, toy collector, keto and intermittent fasting enthusiast, and father, among other things. What a douche.
That's all it says? I think I must have shortened that. I think it had said a bunch of other stuff.
Well, it says his thoughts may not be deep or worthwhile, but he's here to share them with the world all the same. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think there was some kind of a lead up to it. Because there was a time where I had it say, he is this, and this, but not in that order. And then I think at one point I had it say, well, then if it's not in that order, then why did he put him in that order? What a douche.
Ah, okay.
Or maybe it was that. His thoughts may not be deep or worthwhile, but he's going to share them with you anyways. What a douche.
Yes, I think we can both agree that it says what a douche. So, Big and I, for years and years, had our podcast called the Dunesteef Audio Fiction Magazine, and we still do, which is kind of weird. We've been doing the Broken Mirror Christmas stories from last year, which were sent in by our listeners, and then we've gotten to our own stories now from the Broken Mirror event.
Oh, crap.
And I thought it would be nice to get paid for mine, so I asked if we could do it as an episode of the Rish Outcast, but you don't remember it that way. Is that correct?
No, I was pretty sure that we had decided this was going to be an ankle cast. I'm not down with
so
this.
No one could get paid.
That's right. No, I do remember you wanting to do it as an ankle cast. As an outcast.
But we'll go ahead and release this on the Dunesteef page and on the Dunesteef feed, like it's just a regular Dunesteef episode. The only difference is that the people that support me on Patreon get it first. And, maybe there's one other difference. We bleep the racial slurs in the Dunesteef version. And
okay.
So, what do you remember was our premise our prompt for the Broken Mirror holiday event?
Rather than look it up, I'm just going to approximate it as close as I can.
Yeah.
You are invited to your boyfriend's
/ girlfriend's
house for Christmas dinner, but the meal is not what you expected.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
It was something very similar to that. And if you're not a listener to the Dunesteef, and I would imagine that anybody that listens to my show also listens to the Dunesteef. There's not a lot of big fans of the 50-Foot Bride of Candy Rock, the movie that Lou Costello made without Bud Abbott. But in case there are people that haven't heard them, this is actually in a marathon of 6 Christmas episodes that we've done. Hence the flop sweat. So we have come to my story. Do you remember what my story was called, Big?
It was called The Many Faces of Christmas Eve? Christmas?
Yeah?
It's close. Something like that.
Can you say it with a bit more confidence? I guess you're tipping your hat as to what you thought of the story.
Is it Eve or is it not Eve?
It is Eve, yes.
Okay. The Many Faces of Christmas Eve.
Thank you, sir.
How was that? Very confident, right?
That was good. So should we say anything more, or should we just run the story?
We should do an About the Author, right?
Hell no.
I think we're good. Go ahead and run the story. We'll see people on the other side.
If they bother coming back.
If they haven't run for the door by then.
The Many Faces of Christmas Eve by Rish Outfield. My Christmas Eve shift had ended, and except for the heavy-set lady with rollers in her hair, it had been pretty uneventful. I'd gotten the ambulance parked and ready for the overnight shift, and went back into the hospital proper to clock out. There was a time clock in the garage and the staff rooms, but Jillian had been working tonight, and I hoped to see her one more time. Maybe wish her a Merry Christmas. There she was, on the phone at the reception desk, her dark hair done up in an overly severe bun. She didn't glance up when I walked past, and was still on the phone when I'd clocked myself out, walked past her desk again, and paused to put on my coat. She said, "Yes, I'm still here," into the phone, then went quiet for a moment. "Hey, Jillian," I said, and she looked over at me. Her expression didn't change much, if she was happy or unhappy to see me. She gave me a nod. "Well, Merry Christmas," I said to her, smiling as warmly as I could. If "I really like you and appreciate you and wish you liked me too, all evidence to the contrary, but Merry Christmas will have to suffice," could be conveyed in a smile, it was in mine. "You too, Franklin," she said, and to her credit, did smile back. But her smile said, "I am aware you find me pretty, and that is not pleasing to me, but I will smile for the holidays' sake, because I am not mean." And I guess I'd take that. I headed down the hall, then remembered where my car was, and casually turned in a circle and headed back the other way. I passed her desk a third time, and knew she'd think it was so I could look at her one more time. But she was engrossed in her phone conversation. "I didn't say that. When did I say that?" she was asking, and never noticed me there. I got outside and was hit by a cool, but not exactly freezing, winter breeze. There were snowflakes in that wind, but not enough to stick on the ground, or even technically count as snow. Seeing Jillian Chandetka always gave me a feeling of both yearning and wonder. The yearning was obvious, since I'd harbored a crush on her, a strangely immature crush, straight out of my junior high or preteen years, since September or so. The wonder was just how attractive and how alive she was. She laughed often, behaved in a theatrical way, as though a studio audience or bank of cameras was always on her. It made me wonder why I didn't greet life with such exuberance. And every interaction I had with her reminded me that, as extraordinary as I thought she was, I didn't strike her as even remotely special. It was a weird, helpless feeling. But one day I'd feel differently, so I tried not to let it get me down, especially on Christmas Eve. I approached my car and fished my keys out, trying first in my coat before finding them in my jeans pocket, when I heard someone call my name. I turned. It was Jillian. She was moving quickly toward me, now wearing a long gray jacket and boots, rather than just the scrubs she'd had on before. "Hey," I said, and felt myself grinning, but unable to do anything about it. "Franklin?" she asked. "You on your way home?" "Uh-huh." I looked at her. There was a bit of color in her cheeks, and her hair was long and down,
which looked a lot better than it had 2 minutes before. And it occurred to me that she'd had to have run pretty fast to grab her things and catch up to me. That made me smile wider. "You taking off too?" "Yes, but I wondered if you might want to." There was an unsure vulnerability in her tone, which was not typical, and it filled me with more adolescent wonder. I had to fight to keep myself from saying yes before she'd even asked whatever it was she was asking. But honestly, I would have said yes to going to a midnight tax audit in a flash rave at a working slaughterhouse. "Go out for Christmas dinner with me and my family?" she finished. It took me a long second to process this. "Me?" I said, before I could control myself. "Unless you've got plans," she added. And damned if there wasn't atypical vulnerability there as well. I'd had no plans, unless drinking myself silly during the 24-hour Laverne and Shirley marathon on cable counted. So I agreed. Tomorrow? "It's tonight, actually," she said. She was standing behind my car now, and seemed to be deciding whether to go around to the passenger side or walk away. "In Miller's Fork." "You want me to follow you?" She shrugged. "I figured we could go together." There was a bit of that usual Jillian Chandetka boldness, and she started around to the passenger side before I could answer. I unlocked the doors, and we got in. "What about your car?" I asked. "I'll buy another if I have to," Jillian said. Which was weird. I mean, this whole thing was weird, but a joke I didn't get was low on the list. I pulled out of the parking lot, waving at Tyler Dukas, who was just getting out of his truck, only 15 minutes or so late. "Who was that?" she asked, and I almost didn't want to tell her, since Tyler was so much chummier and smoother with the ladies than I was. I told her anyway, and she didn't comment, which I appreciated. "You know the way?" Jillian asked instead. I was headed for the freeway now. "Just let me know where to get off," I said, knowing I'd regret it. Jillian didn't let a potentially embarrassing statement like that go unpointed out. But she said nothing about it, only, "Have a good work shift today?" I said that I had, and when pressed, I told her about the lady with the rollers in her hair. We were on this street, like a mile down the way, when she sat up and said she wanted to go home. It wasn't a heart attack after all, just indigestion, and she didn't want to pay for a damn ambulance. "Did you stop?" That was a rather dumb question. The policy was to get the patient to the hospital, no matter how well they were feeling once in transit. Jillian knew that. But I told her anyway. She was mad, though. Mad at the paramedic and mad at me. She said she'd do jumping jacks if we wanted her to show us how good she felt. "And did you make her?" Jillian asked. I couldn't tell that she was joking, which was surprising since she normally had a lilting, melodramatic voice practically any time she said anything. No. She was all right. You could see that. But we still had Gary talk with her and do some tests. We got on the freeway entrance and headed south. Miller's Fork was about a 15-minute drive, depending on where her folks lived. "How about you?" I asked. "You have anything crazy happen today?" "No, nothing," she said, and silence reigned. This was more like it. I'd tried talking to Jillian a dozen times over the past few weeks, and though I tried to ask open questions that would get her to talk to me, she never had much to say. Tyler Dukas, however, could ask her, "What's up?" and get a 10-minute conversation out of it. Why on earth was she taking me home to meet Mom and Dad instead of, say, somebody she liked? I couldn't get my head around it. But I wasn't complaining, mind you. I turned on the radio, which was playing a commercial, and told her she could put it wherever she wanted. I guess that could be a double entendre too, but she didn't hear it that way. Instead, she pressed scan and said, "Tell me when it's a song you know." Why? Hot for Teacher was playing on 103.5, but I chose to let it go, even though I knew that one start to finish. Why? "So you can sing along with it," she said. The next station was a country one, playing somebody like Reba doing Silent Night, and the station after that was the Spanish one. Me? I asked. Or us? You have a good voice. Why don't you pick one to sing? Oh, I don't know any words, Jillian said. And that seemed odd, too. Jillian was always singing when I'd see her around the hospital, but it was usually really terrible songs that are popular today. Most every station, except the talk radio one, was playing holiday tunes, and we stopped it on Nat King Cole doing the Christmas song. She didn't sing along, but encouraged me to do so. Next up was the Jackson 5 with Santa Claus is Coming Tonight, and I just let them sing it. I'd never really liked that one, even the Springsteen version. I could smell her in the car, but it was a different perfume or shampoo than I'd caught whiffs of in the past. Jillian always smelled like hot cocoa or cinnamon rolls for some reason, like she worked in a bakery instead of a hospital. Now she smelled like something inside the doors of Macy's or Dillard's in the mall. It was different, but still nice. Next up was the Eagles with Please Come Home for Christmas, and that one I sang a bit of, hoping she'd join in too. Instead, she leaned over the seat during the Friends and Relations Sing Salutations part and squeezed my hand on the steering wheel. My heart did this leapfrog thing, like I was 13 years old again, and Allison Watkins had just made eye contact with me in the Praisden Junior High cafeteria. But she didn't sing. We got off on the second exit, and she told me where to drive. I needed her help because I didn't know this area of Miller's Fork, with lots of rural land and plenty of trees, at all. We got to a snowy, out-of-the-way road, and she said that was it. Are you sure? I asked, wondering if it had been plowed recently. My little car wasn't terrible in snow, but I'd gotten it stuck before. She was sure, and we made it fine, discovering other tracks in the snow that proved people did use the road. Up ahead was a large, old-fashioned 2-story house, with smoke coming from the chimney, and 2 snowmen in the front yard, pretty intricately sculpted to look like twin Santa Clauses. We parked in front of them. That's amazing, I said. Who made those? Someone in the family, Jillian said as we got out. My parents, maybe. The sculptures were obviously made from real snow, but they were so flawless, I didn't want to believe it. How? How did they do it? The 2 snowmen were identical, and I wondered if there was such a thing as a snowman mold that you push snow into and pop out a perfectly carved finished product with. If not, they ought to make something like that, patent it, and sell it. There was a newish Prius parked in the driveway, and Christmas lights around all the downstairs windows. Jillian took my arm as we went up the porch, and I had to convince myself it was because she was worried about slipping on the ice, of which there was none. Whatever the reason for the physical contact, I didn't mind. She knocked twice, then went inside. Music was playing quietly above the fireplace. Some choir, Mormon tabernacle probably, singing Little Drummer Boy, and there was a flocked tree with green bulbs on it in the corner, kind of the opposite of a normal tree, with the tree being white and the ornaments being green. I could smell something cooking, turkey or chicken, and the house was clean and sparsely decorated, as though they'd recently moved in. We went into the dining room, where there was one person sitting. He was a young man, about 25, handsome and blonde, wearing expensive glasses. He seemed a bit confused and lost, and he frowned at Jillian.
Stacy,
he said.
I've been sitting here for 10 minutes. Do you guys need help back there?
Jillian shook her head slightly.
I'm sorry. I'm Jillian, not Stacy. I can send my sister out. What's your name?
I'm Scotty,
he said, rising to his feet. He looked at her, and me, suspiciously.
You're not Stacy?
She shook his hand.
Jillian,
she said again. She put up an index finger.
I'll be right back, Franklin,
she said, and stepped through the swinging doors, which I assumed led to the kitchen. Hey, do you need me to... I started to ask, but she was gone. I turned to the good-looking guy. Is there a place I can put my coat? I asked him.
Yeah, there's a rack over there.
He put out his hand for me to shake. Franklin, I said.
Scotty.
I couldn't help myself. You given it all you got, Captain? I asked in a poor Scottish accent. Scotty was distracted. He was looking toward the kitchen and seemed to be piecing things together in his mind.
You just got here? The two of you?
Yeah, just pulled up. There was concern on his face, and now I was getting concerned. Why? What's wrong, man?
Must be twins,
he said to himself. I still heard him. What's that? He licked his lips.
My girlfriend Stacy. We got here 15 minutes ago. That girl you came in with must be your twin sister.
I sat down at the table, leaving a chair between me and Scotty. Holy cow, I said. Didn't know Jillian had a twin.
Stacy didn't say either. She said she had sisters, but...
He let it go.
So you guys come very far?
Before I could answer him, a girl wearing a fuzzy baby blue sweater came into the dining room, carrying rolls on a tray. She looked identical to Jillian, except her hair was braided, and she gave off a younger vibe than Jillian did.
Hello, boys,
she said. Her voice didn't match her sister's, but she seemed happy to see us. I stood up, for some reason, and Scotty took my lead and did the same.
No, don't stand up, she said. I'm just bringing bread. I'm to offer you wine if you want some.
Stacy?
Asked Scotty. She giggled.
Nope, I'm Marie. Are you Scott or Frank?
Scotty. He's Frank.
Franklin, actually, I corrected. Frank had been my grandfather. You're Jillian's sister?
I am. How could you tell?
She asked, then smiled. But it was a strange smile. Not flirty, not playful, but secretive. And also slightly condescending.
Triplets,
Scotty said with a chuckle.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh, sure, I said. I've read about it. It's not uncommon. I nearly added that it was usually couples that used in vitro fertilization, but I didn't really know this guy.
Wine?
Marie asked again. Sure, I said. But Scotty said he didn't drink. He said it as though she should have known that already, and it occurred to me that he thought he was talking to his date, not her sister. And I began to suspect that he was right, that there was only one of them, that this was a big, not very funny prank. It would almost explain why Jillian would invite me here, but not quite why she smelled different. But how did she braid her hair then, in just a minute or two? Because it was a wig? Or maybe French braids weren't hard to do. And then someone else came out of the kitchen. It was either Jillian or Stacy, with a roast on a tray, and put it on the table.
Hey,
she said. She was followed, almost immediately, by either Jillian or Stacy, who had 2 dark bottles of wine. This one had an apron on, and her hair in a simple old-fashioned shortcut.
Hello there, she said sweetly. Nice to meet you. I'm Simona.
4?
I'm the girl's mother."
No, that couldn't be. She didn't look like an older version of Jillian. She looked like Jillian. She didn't even have glasses on. But the swinging doors opened, and out came either Jillian or Stacy, carrying the carrots and potatoes. This one wore a black long-sleeved shirt, and pretty clearly wasn't wearing a bra. But other than that, was hard to identify.
"Is everybody here?"
Mom asked.
"Vance hasn't gotten here yet,"
said the one with the fuzzy sweater, Marie.
"Oh, I was about to introduce ourselves,"
Mom said.
"Maybe I should wait."
"No,"
said Scotty, standing up once again. It was like he couldn't help himself.
"Please, you're, what do you call it, quadruplets?"
The ostensibly older one laughed.
"I told you, I'm Stacy, Jillian, and Marie's mother, Simona. And you're Lee?"
From across the table, Jillian, judging by her hair and jacket, said,
"No, Mom, he's Scotty. He's with Stacy. Lee couldn't make it. I'm here with Franklin." "How nice."
The woman calling herself Simona greeted both of us warmly.
"I'm so glad you could make it."
"You're her mom," I said, unable to keep from marveling. She nodded, practically beaming.
"I'll explain when I can. Pretty, aren't I?"
Yeah, she was. Still, there wasn't much I could say. The theme song to The Twilight Zone was echoing loudly in the back of my head. A male voice from the kitchen called, "Guys, is it okay for me to come out now?" Simona smiled for our benefit and called back,
"Not quite yet. Vince hasn't arrived yet." "Vance,"
Marie with the fuzzy sweater said, laying out silverware on the table.
"I'll let you know,"
Simona shouted to who I assumed to be her husband. Then to Marie she said,
"Could you call him?" "I did call,"
Marie said, sounding petulant.
"He told me he was on—"
The doorbell rang. It echoed throughout the house, even louder than the Twilight Zone theme.
"That must be him,"
Marie said, putting a fork down in front of my plate. Even up close, she looked exactly like her sister. Jillian sat down next to me.
"Is it Vince or Vance?"
she asked.
"Vance,"
Stacy said, and crossed quickly to get the door. She opened it, and a tall, dark, and handsome guy stepped in, already taking off his coat. He wore a suit and tie, and something about him announced stockbroker. "Had a bugger of a time finding the turn," he said to Stacy, and leaned in for a kiss. She dodged it like a fighter in a boxing match, and said,
"Sorry, no, I'm Stacy. You're with Jillian."
Marie plunked down the rest of the spoons and ran over to the stockbroker.
"No, he's mine,"
she said, a bit annoyed. She kissed the man cleanly on the mouth. I felt strangely jealous seeing that. But of course I would. Except for the sweater, she was the spitting image of Jillian Chandetka. Vance looked at the two sisters. "What the fuck?" I heard him murmur. If Marie was embarrassed by that, she took it in stride.
"Vance, this is my family. We're about to sit down for dinner. Mom and Dad will explain."
But Vance was looking at the faces of all the women. I wondered if my own face had a similar expression. Maybe we looked like our own set of slack-jawed twins.
"Welcome, Vince,"
Mom said. She cocked her head toward the kitchen.
"Okay, Orlach, you can come in now,"
she called. And Dad came in through the double doors, dressed in a festive red Santa Claus suit. He let out a hearty, "Ho, ho, ho!" He was Jillian, only taller and heavier, but otherwise identical. It shouldn't have been a surprise at this point, but it still was, especially when he spoke in a clearly male, not at all appropriate for her delicate features, voice. "Merry Christmas, everybody!"
What the Vance swore again.
I have to agree,
Scotty mumbled a seat over from me. I slipped and hit my head, and I'm dreaming right now, I thought. Maybe the ambulance crashed into something. Maybe somebody spiked the punch at the hospital Christmas party, and none of this is happening. But it was.
Let's all sit down,
Jillian's mother suggested, and everybody did, with Santa Dad Jillian on the end. Vance had to be helped to his seat on the other end, and his face, deeply tanned before, was now pale. Marie took his hand and squeezed it. I hoped Jillian would do the same for me, but no such luck. Boys, I know this is confusing and, how might you say, possibly terrifying to you, Dad said. But we can explain. Mom spoke up.
Let me do it, dear. Their eyes are starting to, what's the expression? Bug out.
I glanced at Scotty. His eyes were actually squinting at that moment, perhaps suspecting something similar to what I kept thinking, that this wasn't real. Mom continued. She gestured to her husband and daughters.
You see, we are, well, not human. Our family came to your world 3 years ago, and we wanted to have one last traditional American Christmas before we leave. Last year's was
awkward, Dad said.
A disaster,
Jillian threw in.
There was vomiting,
Marie said, shivering.
Stacy's boy got hurt. Just a minor injury,
Stacy said. I opened my mouth to speak, but Mom waved me off.
The thing is, each of you is seeing something different right now. Scotty, what color hair do I have?
Blonde. I don't know if you call it platinum or...
Vince?
Vance, he corrected her. But I don't know if I'd call it platinum. Some call it dirty blonde, maybe a honeysuckle.
Franklin?
Black, I said. What little hair could be seen under their father's hat matched the others. Easy, it's black. You all do. Black, Vance said, as though I were the one being ludicrous right now. I guess I picked up on it before, but he was a bit of a jack-handle.
Right,
Mom said.
The thing is, each of you is seeing a different face right now. The same face. 2 years ago, when Marie was just starting to come of age, we got the idea to do it this way. We let the boys pick how they'd see us, but it backfired.
You see, guys, Dad said, his pretty blue eyes going to each of us under his Santa hat. You're all seeing what you'd like to be seeing right now. Even with me. It's what they call a glamorous in your language.
Glamour, Dad,
Jillian said. Right. You see what you find most appealing. Unfortunately, it affects all of us. Terrified their boyfriends the last time. Right out of their minds.
Oh, he recovered,
Stacy said dismissively.
Eventually.
Well, I apologize for that, Mr. Chandetka said. If I dropped the glamour, you might not be so amenable to this dinner, and we just want to have a nice time.
Drop the glamour,
Scotty said, in all seriousness.
Prove what you're saying.
Oh, we won't be doing that,
Mom said, and the two parents met each other's gaze in a meaningful moment.
But you're aliens,
Scotty continued.
All of you.
Stacy patted his cheek.
We don't like that word, Scotty, but...
He flinched from her a little bit.
From another planet. Living among us.
Exactly,
Mom said.
We're a family of immigrants experiencing the American dream, and all of us really enjoy the holidays. Well, the way the holidays are on TV,
Marie amended.
I can take it or leave it,
Stacy said.
But you're not human,
Scotty asked, still seeming skeptical. Guess his Star Trek name hadn't prepared him for contact with extraterrestrials. Dad spoke up. For the purposes of this lovely dinner, which your mother has been working on since last night, yes, we're human. What happened last year? Vance asked. Dad shrugged. Only the girls had their glamour on. I hadn't anticipated the kind of reaction my appearance would provoke.
Vomiting,
Marie said, smiling. Then she whispered,
and Cameron filled his pants. Marie!
Jillian cried beside me, suggesting that Cameron had been her date the year before. But that reminded me. Wait, you'd said Lee couldn't make it. Were you supposed to be coming here with someone else?
Lee and Jillian broke up,
Jillian said to the others.
It was so last minute, I had to...
Wait, I said again. Are you Jillian? Or only pretending to be her?
I'm both,
she said.
Oh, don't tell him that,
Marie tried to warn her. She shook her head.
We might as well tell everything. Right, Mom? It is our last Christmas here,
their mother said.
Okay,
my date said.
I'm Jillian in looks and memories, just not the Jillian that you work with at the hospital.
I don't understand.
I replaced her,
Jillian said.
Just like you replaced Lee at this family dinner. Which reminds me,
Mom said, standing up again.
The food's getting cold. Let's all start in, shall we?
Vance said the F word again, and we all looked over at him. He was checking his cell phone, which seemed to have no service. His girlfriend said,
Put that away, will you? Just for tonight?
He snorted, but did what he was told. Should we say grace? Dad asked. Don't most Americans say grace?
I'll say it,
Stacy volunteered.
I've been practicing all week.
And she said something, approximating a prayer. The girl that looked so much like Jillian closed her eyes, and I reflexively closed mine too.
Earth, God, there are lots of things to be thankful for,
she said.
This is a nice night, so thanks for that. And everybody here seems to be taking things good. Well, dear,
Mom threw in.
Well, right,
she said.
I like the snow when it first falls, and we all enjoy the music.
I opened my eyes, watching her attempt at prayer. It was surreal the way her face looked so much like Jillian's, yet the voice and her expressions didn't match. I mean, yeah, all of this was surreal, but this was just one extra thing. Stacy continued.
Our family sure had a good time on this planet, except for politics, which we didn't understand at first. But now that we do, it's actually way worse. Depressing.
Stacy, her father said under her breath.
Yes, sorry. Thankfulness. I like having hair. That's sure nice. And Scotty's a good pick. I like this one. And this holiday. So thanks for that. And basically, if you care about chadroques or thick beanies rather than just... English, dear.
It was Mom again.
English, yeah. If you're listening, Earth God, thanks for this meal. Thanks for the time we've had on this planet. And that my boyfriend finally found my G-spot. Bless the poor, bless the lower worms and the more decent slime eaters, and may George R.R. Martin live to write another book. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.
We all said, though I noticed Vance on the end was gritting his teeth when he said it. Everybody dig in, Dad said, then pointed to the potatoes. I made the taters and gravy, so try to ignore the lumps.
I'm sure they're fine,
Mom added, and began serving vegetables.
Do you like corn?
Jillian asked beside me. I took a little breath before I answered. Even with all this nonsense, the idea that she would care what I liked was kind of overwhelming. I do. Sure. Not peas so much, though,
She looked around the table.
There are no peas. Is that a part of traditional American Christmas?
I shrugged. I figured every family had their own traditions. My own parents always had roast with yams for Christmas dinner, no matter what else we did or how much my sisters and I complained.
What do you do, Franklin?
Mom asked, now passing out the meat, one plate at a time. Oh, I work with Jillian, I said.
And where's that?
The, hospital. Mountain View,
She's a nurse in the ER,
Jillian said, and I was again reminded that this wasn't really her. Oh, you're a nurse? Dad asked, and it wasn't an insulting question, like it would be on TV. He sounded genuinely impressed, even if I couldn't look at his pretty face from beneath the Santa hat for very long without getting uncomfortable. I drive an ambulance, I said. Oh, Dad replied, now seeming disappointed.
Vance is a junior partner at a law firm,
Marie said, sounding prideful. Just say partner, he muttered. You don't have to say junior. I had taken him for a Wall Street type, but I could also see a lawyer in this guy. No problem whatsoever.
And Scotty does experiments on animals,
Stacy boasted.
Is that true?
Jillian asked, wrinkling her nose a little bit. I was glad it wasn't just my job that was a letdown.
All non-invasive, I assure you,
Scotty said.
Mostly just chemical testing, weeding out ingredients that are potentially harmful. All the animals are...
Here you go,
Jillian's mother interrupted, putting some turkey on my plate. I thanked her. I thought that it had been heavily salted, but when I looked closer, it had white candy sprinkles on it, like a donut. It still tasted fine, but it was a bit unusual. My date touched my waist under the table.
I'm going to make you sing later,
she said, which I couldn't interpret as anything other than sexual. Nobody else seemed to have heard. The potatoes were lumpy, and the gravy tasted a little burnt, but I'm sure I couldn't have done any better myself. Mrs. Chandetka poured me a heaping glass of wine. Oh, I better not, I started to say, but she only smiled.
It'll be fine. You won't be driving.
I didn't know how to interpret that statement. It was meant to reassure, but I couldn't help but read something ominous into it. We ate in silence, while Vance talked about a family law case he was putting together. He was trying to make himself sound brilliant, but all I got out of it was that he was willing to cheat to win a court case. Jillian, I whispered. She leaned in. You're not her? Not the Jillian I work with? She gave me a smile.
In every way that matters, Frank.
What do you mean? I guess I said it too loud, because Vance had stopped and was glaring at me, like I'd just made a farting noise with my armpit. Jillian gave him a nod.
Go on, keep telling your story, while I explain to Franklin how a cognipose works.
Vance snorted and started in on his food. No, explain, please. Jillian eyed him for one more second before continuing.
The fact is, I am essentially Jillian. I have been for the past, 4 months, since August 22nd. The Jillian you work with went to sleep for 3 hours. This was at the Forever 21 on University Parkway. And when we were done, I had her brain mapped over my own. All her experiences, her sensations, her knowledge and passions are available to me. Go ahead, ask me who my 4th grade teacher was.
I indulged her, even though I had no idea where she'd gone to 4th grade, much less who'd taught her.
Miss Bigler,
Jillian said proudly.
She was a real biatch.
And you'd been planning to invite her boyfriend tonight? That guy with the Magnum mustache? I asked.
Lee, yes, but they broke up on Monday. He wanted them to get matching marijuana leaf tattoos or something, and it turned into a screaming match.
I tried to process it. But this was Jillian from the hospital, not you.
Right. It had taken something completely stupid and totally permanent on his part to get through to First Jillian. I'd had a problem with him for a while, though, ever since he insisted that she buy something called the morning after pill so he could stop having to wear latex wrap coverings on his love unit.
But how do you know this? I wondered. Were you listening somehow?
Stacy slammed down her wine glass from across the table.
Mom, why are you letting her say all this?
She grumbled.
It's making Scotty uncomfortable.
No, I think it's super interesting,
Scotty said, looking fascinated, and not at all confused.
Is it the same way with you, Stace?
Mom!
She whined, sounding very much like a typical American girl.
Just tell him,
said Mrs. Chandetka.
You might as well.
Stacy sighed.
Okay. Yes, it's the same with me, except that I've been Stacy Albridge since June 3rd.
He nodded.
And where's the real Stacy Albridge?
See, Mom?
Stacy complained.
This is what I was worried about. Now he thinks I'm not the real one, in spite of us being together all this time. Sorry,
Jillian said beside me, looking from one sister to the other.
It's just that we've never tried to explain it to them before, and this one doesn't know me at all.
I put down my fork. When she put it that way, I felt totally underqualified to be there. Vance spoke up from the end of the table. Yeah, what's the deal with him? Why'd you pick this guy?
He has a thing for me,
Jillian explained.
For Jillian, I mean. And because she was aware of it, I was aware of it. I didn't want to not have a date tonight.
So you just propositioned him? Dad asked.
Not proposition, Dad. I was just pretty sure he'd come along tonight, and I was right. Well, I'm sure he's just as special as Lee was,
Mom threw in. It was supposed to be reassuring, but it didn't do much for my self-esteem.
He can sing, Jillian said. You should have heard him in the car. You sing, Franklin?
Marie asked beside Vance. And she sounded impressed, which seemed to piss off Vance, which pleased me. No, not really, I said. There was just a song on the radio on the way up here.
It was a sad one,
Jillian bragged.
He did a fine job.
All eyes were on me now. Oh, that's nothing. Jillian's the one with the great voice.
Not me, Frank,
Jillian muttered.
The other one.
Vance stood up straight. He had barely touched his food. So, Frankie, go ahead, sing us a song. He said it in such a challenging, dick-measuring way that I worried he would reveal that he'd previously been in a boy band or something. I put up my hands, effectively surrendering. Oh, no, I'm... Do you know the one about the man with the magic hat? The girl's father asked me, leaning forward. Magic hat? Mom nodded, remembering.
It made him come to life. It's very religious.
Wait, Frosty the Snowman? I asked.
That song is for children, Dad,
Marie complained. All right. What else do you know? He asked me.
Sing the one from the car,
Jillian stage whispered. Which one? The Eagles? She faced her parents.
It's about a man who has lost his love and longs for her return at the holidays. Ooh,
Mom cooed, genuinely impressed. Oh, I don't know it all that well, I demurred. Jillian handed me her wine glass, which was still 2/3 full.
Drink until you do.
I turned to the other two guys. Vance was trying to check his phone again. Scotty was staring down at Stacy's breasts, which he'd apparently just noticed. I wondered what they looked like to him. Do either of you know Please Come Home for Christmas? I asked.
Scotty shrugged and said,
Sorry.
Vance muttered, I'd look it up, but I still have no goddamn service. So, I was on my own.
Just do your best, Franklin,
their mother said.
We won't judge.
I thought that was probably true. Of everyone but Vance. So, I took a sip of Jillian's wine, my tongue lingering on the glass where I hoped her lips had been, and stood up. Okay, it goes something like, bells will be ringing, there's sad, sad news. Oh, what a Christmas to have the blues. My baby's gone, I have no friends to wish me greetings once again. Choirs will be singing Silent Night, Jillian Chandetka by candlelight. Please come home for Christmas, please come home for Christmas. If not for Christmas, by New Year's night. I had worse luck remembering the lyrics to the second verse, singing Sure as the lights shine above instead of stars. Everyone watched me with rapt attention. I saw Vance looking as bored as humanly possible, but his girl was staring at me in a way even my own Jillian never had before. I finished the song, pretty much remembering the last bit correctly, and when I finished, the Chandetkas all applauded. Scotty gave me a nod, and Vance began studying his plate.
So, what does the song mean?
Mom asked. Mean?
Yes. Does your wife return to you? Are you happy once again?
I shook my head. Well, I didn't write the song. It just ends with the guy hoping that she does.
But does she? If you wrote it.
I looked down at Jillian, who gave me a heartwarming smile. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a Christmas song, so why not?
Oh, that is very good,
Mom said, and immediately burst into tears. Her husband put his arm around her and whispered something to her I couldn't understand. I hadn't done all that great a job singing the song, but it certainly had an effect. I sat back down.
Now you sing something, Scotty,
Stacy said, passing her own nearly empty wine glass his way.
Do the one about the backdoor Santa Claus.
What?
He asked, and that was it. Guess he wasn't much of a singer. Marie had a suggestion.
Franklin, sing the one about how cold it is outside.
I knew what she meant, but I didn't dare proceed. Which one is that? She made these big eyes and tilted her head unnaturally, like a tween trying to look like a sexy adult.
It goes, I really can't stay, but baby, it's cold outside.
I feigned ignorance.
I think it's called, Baby, It's Cold Outside.
You know that one, Vance? I asked. He shook his head, then clasped his hands. Oh, sing us another one, Franklin. I'm sure you know the Little Drummer Boy. I knew he had to be being condescending, maybe implying something gay about the song, but Jillian saved me.
What about Winter Wonderland?
She suggested. Only if you'll sing it too, I said. Her father made her agree, and we sang it together. Her voice, while not as showy as the real Jillian's was, she even made Despacito sound nice, was just fine, and she knew all the words, and even harmonized with me on one or two notes, though that might have been an accident. When we were done, there was more applause, and her little sister looked at me like she wished I was her date. Vance seemed to pick up on this, and he gave me the slow clap of cynicism. I sat back down, determined not to sing again even if I was asked. Their mother told her husband to bring in the dessert.
Thanks for that, Frank,
Jillian cooed beside me.
I'm glad I picked you.
I didn't have an answer to that. As bizarre as all this was, I was glad she had too.
This has been very nice,
their mother was saying.
Most of our stay here has been that way. Instructional, emotional, and good for a lifetime of memories.
She seemed totally genuine, and I got a sense of age from her, despite her young face. So, when are you all going back? I asked. 3 weeks or under, Dad said. We don't have the exact date.
Why are you going back?
Scotty asked. We were only temporarily here. It's something our people do. Cultural enlightenment, the kids call it.
And you'll return to your world?
Our dimension, technically,
Stacy said. Dad looked at his youngest daughter and said, Marie, didn't you have something prepared?
Yes,
she said, which I interpreted as no. But she stood up and then proceeded to tell the Bible Christmas story, with almost no detail. It was a basic retelling, except that the wise men were looking for baby Jesus to kill him for the king, and Mary and Joseph were inexplicably able to talk to animals. Marie ended with,
and they all lived happily ever after,
which struck me as particularly childlike, then said,
and that's why Christmas is celebrated to this day.
Marie sat, and didn't catch Vance rolling his eyes. She handed him her wine glass, and he swallowed it all down. The rest of us clapped politely, though Scotty interrupted his with a yawn. That story was very farming, Marie, Dad said, smiling. He seemed to have bigger teeth than Jillian, but otherwise his face was identical. Immediately his wife leaned over and corrected him. I mean, how charming. Thank you, Marie. She gave Vance a quick kiss on the cheek, but it didn't make his mood any less sour. And, Jillian, will you sing that nonsense song to us you were singing the other day?
Nonsense?
She asked, but I could see in her eyes that she knew exactly what he was talking about. She looked over at me, as if for encouragement. It warmed my heart. Please, I said. Jillian stood up and began singing,
Mele Kaliki Maka is the thing to say on a bright Hawaiian Christmas day.
She was quite off-key, and maybe the most attractive I'd ever seen her. The warmth in my heart as I watched her continued, and I saw her eyes tear up halfway through. We all clapped when she was finished.
The stars to shine by day and all the suns at night?
Marie scoffed. I hadn't even noticed she'd gotten it wrong.
That song's ridiculous,
Stacy added. Jillian sat down, abashed.
Sorry,
she said.
The real Jillian loves the song. I don't know why.
Well, I thought it was great, I said, my ears burning as I added, and you are great. I never knew why Elvis would sing that song, Vance grumbled sleepily from his chair, since he was from the South, not Hawaii.
Did Elvis sing that song?
Jillian asked.
Who's Elvis?
Marie added.
He was the American president with the nice hair,
Mom told her, though I wasn't sure who she was talking about.
The one with all the girlfriends. Can you finish this for me?
Stacy asked Scotty. She handed him her glass, and, despite having said he didn't drink an hour before, he shrugged and drank it down. Guess after discovering your girlfriend was an extraterrestrial, all bets were off. I, too, had been offered my date's glass. This seemed a little bit off to me. I leaned over to Jillian to find out what she'd say, but she was looking at the end of the table, where Vance's head was drooping. He was nodding, once, twice, and then bonk. His head actually hit the table,
his cheek and left ear landing in his leftover mashed potatoes. My jaw clenched. I looked at Jillian's wine glass, still mostly full. Vance's was gone. Marie shrugged.
Guess the drive over really tuckered him out,
she deadpanned. What is tuckered again? Dad asked. Scotty had put 2 and 2 together, I think, and said,
Hey, what's going on?
Stacy leaned in to kiss him, or whisper something, but said something I couldn't understand, that sounded like, Kalderasaf. Scotty blinked, started to respond, then he too fell immediately to sleep. She caught his head so it didn't go anywhere messy or dangerous. Now, it was just me. I looked around, having difficulty swallowing. Did I feel tired? Well, sure, but more tired than usual? Relaxed, yes. Calm, too. Too calm for the situation. Across the table, Mom and Dad were watching me expectantly. Patiently, even. Now comes the time when they eat me, I thought. Jillian took my hand, gave it a squeeze. She got closer.
I'm sorry, she said. I wish I'd gotten to know you before.
Her mother handed her something box-like, and Jillian started to raise it. No, I said. Please, tell me what's going on.
Come on, aren't you sleepy?
Marie said from beside me. I think she was there to keep me from running away.
Don't be afraid,
Jillian said. Her expression was genuine. What's going to happen? I managed. Dad stood up from his chair. You were supposed to be Lee. He has the sleep word already set up. Have I been hypnotized, then? Into falling for her? I asked him. It made as much sense as any of this did. Jillian sighed.
Nope, that's all real.
Then she smiled that amazing, happy-to-be-alive smile, and I almost didn't mind whatever was about to happen. Almost. Marie raised the thing she held in her hand. It was a mechanism, but appeared to be made out of seashells.
It's just to go to sleep, Franklin. You're going to wake up and not know anything happened.
You'll forget tonight, without problem.
Dad crossed behind me and went to the other end of the table.
The others will be worse, he said, since we have to blot out a much longer period.
Good times,
Stacy said, sounding sad. Beside me, Marie shrugged.
1 or 2.
The father had a similar device in his hand, and he was scanning the back of Vance's head with it. On my other side, the mother was doing the same to Scotty, while Stacy cradled his head. Mrs. Chandetka, I began.
Just call me Eelnodge. That last name is absurd.
I was too stressed to find that ironic. Please, you don't have to wipe my memory. I won't say anything. Jillian was by my side, her hand on my shoulder, speaking comfortingly.
You might, Franklin. We have to be sure. Try not to worry.
That possibility did not seem likely. Aliens actually existed, or other dimensions at least, or both, and they liked Christmas songs. And then Jillian kissed me. I could feel her lips on mine, her nose up alongside my own, and it was what I'd wanted since I'd first met her, and thought, wow, that girl looks like somebody I... Then there was nothing. I opened my eyes, having fallen asleep. It takes me a moment to figure out what is happening. I'm sitting in my car, the seatbelt around me, the radio playing quietly. I feel dazed and lost, but not cold. My engine is running, but my lights are off. The windshield is slightly foggy, but beyond it is the hospital's south parking lot. I was just getting ready to go home, right? And then what? I shift uncomfortably. My seat seems to be up a bit too far, but it's nice and warm in the car. What is going on right now? Right beside me, there's a knock on the window. I start, imagining a moth-like face with several eyes and tangly black hair. But no. Outside my window is just Jillian Chandetka, peering in at me. I roll down my window. She's looking in, wearing a jacket and her scrubs.
Franklin? What are you doing out here?
Normally, I'd be supremely happy to see her, but right now, I'm too confused. I don't know exactly. I think I must have been listening to the radio and dozed off. She processes that.
Well, better in the lot than on the road.
What are you doing out here? I ask.
Going home. It's after 11.
I look at the clock. She's right. I look beyond her. Most of the lot is empty now, but I see her Kia Optima in its designated space. Her boyfriend usually picks her up after her shift. Where's, the guy with the mustache?
Lee? He's out somewhere,
she says, and I can't help but read something more into that. I wish I could grow a mustache. My head is filled with that kind of nonsense, like a disgust for mashed potatoes and seashell-looking remote controls. Weird. Jillian's still leaning in the window. Her face is so lovely, but not unusual. I feel there must be lots of people that look like her out there.
Are you going to be okay?
She asks. And suddenly, I feel like I know her better than I do. Like, well, it sounds stupid. Crazy. Yeah, I say, and give her my best smile. I appreciate her concern.
Well,
she begins. Mele Kalikimaka, Jillian, I say. I have no idea why. She blinks a few times in surprise, then laughs.
Yeah, you too.
And she turns to go. After a minute or so, I shift into reverse and back out of the parking spot. I can still smell Jillian's hair, almost like she were in the car with me. Wouldn't that be a nice present for Christmas? The end.
Okay, so, Big, if this were a Dunesteef episode, what is it that you say after every single story that we run on the Dunesteef?
I think I have a choir of people say, it's not a good story, right?
You wish.
Oh, wait, I'm getting all mixed up. Hey, everybody, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the story. I know I did.
Every time. How do you live with yourself?
I don't. I actually have separate apartments.
You keep the bachelor pad available. Well, that's it. That's it. We ran the story, and we're all out of time. So we'll let people...
I can believe that. That was not, as they call them, a short story. That was a long story. Although I think they start calling them novelettes. How many words was this story, do you know?
I don't.
Good.
Scintillating conversation.
Because nobody cares.
Yes. I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead.
All right. That makes sense.
We didn't have a word limit on our own stories, but yeah, everybody else, we asked to keep it brief.
Yeah, keep it kind of short. We were going to have to read them. You know, it's hard. It took us until what? Like July or August, finally get around to reading the Christmas stories that were sent to us in January.
Yeah, I think August was when I read the last one. And
it's funny what happens when you get out of habit of doing something. We used to read stories for the show endlessly. Like, it was a thing that I would spend, I don't know, a couple of hours at least every single week. If not, it could be up to like 10 hours, especially in the early days when we first started out, because we didn't have any Oompa Loompas back then. And then at some point we had Oompa Loompas volunteer to filter the stories and chuck out the crap and just save the good ones. And that cut it from 20 hours to 10. But once you don't do that anymore, just putting 1 hour into reading is more difficult to find the time even, or just to remember that that's something that you're supposed to do. You know, I would talk to you. Oh yeah, we need to read those. Oh yeah, you'd say the same thing back to me. Yeah, oh yeah, I meant to do that. And then the next time we'd talk, we'd say the same thing again.
Well, when we first started the show, we were excited anytime we got a submission that somebody sent us a story because we were so small potatoes. But as the show went on, the number of submissions just got higher and higher and higher. And it got to the point where we knew these people hadn't written the stories for us. They weren't listeners to our show.
Right.
They were just writers that were sending their stuff to every market. And it got less and less fun to read. You know what I mean?
I sure do.
We wanted people to send us stories that we would like. And when it was just a few listeners sending us stories, they knew the kind of things that we ran. But later, as we actually got a following, our podcast would show up on lists of markets. And so people would just send us stuff that was wholly inappropriate for our show, but they didn't care because they were just throwing it to everybody. But the thing that makes these Broken Mirror stories better than just reading submissions is that by necessity, they have to have listened to the show and written the story for us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Somebody doesn't have a story just sitting around, ostensibly somebody doesn't, that fits our prompt.
Yeah, that is definitely the case. Unless maybe you were Nathan Algrim who made the prompt. He might have already written a story like that. And he was suggesting, hey, what about this? Just to see. And then if we take it, he goes, oh, sweet. Now I don't even have to write one. I've done that to you. I think it was funny because in the first episode of the marathon, you were joking about that, saying, oh, yeah, what if the person they had an idea for a story, and then they suggested a generic prompt that went with that idea for a story, just so that they could give themselves the excuse to write it. And I just thought, that's funny, because I'm pretty sure that's how this whole Broken Mirror thing that we've been doing for all these years began, is when I had a story that I couldn't force myself to write. I couldn't get the motivation to write, and I finally wrote you an email saying, what if we both write stories based on, and I can't remember how I did, it was something about the baby, it was a guy with a baby hears over the monitor, I'm coming for your son. Go. And that was, the idea behind my story, which I just couldn't motivate myself to finish. And the funny thing was, you're like, oh, okay, I guess I could do that. And you wrote a story, sent it to me. I got the email with the story in it, and I'm like, oh, crap, I still haven't started mine. But it worked because I actually finished that story. And that may be one of the first stories I ever really finished. That was probably my fourth story ever that I actually finished. So, I guess it's a grand tradition, this Broken Mirror thing. It has taken me from what I was 20 years ago to, I guess I'm not any better now, though, unfortunately. Moving on.
Well, it's along those lines. We had a listener named Cameron who was really inspired by these Broken Mirror things that we did. And he used to write me all the time and said, one day when you do another one of those, I'm going to submit to it. And this was during like the darkest period of our podcast. And I emailed him back and I said, dude, we're not ever going to do another contest. I mean, it's unlikely we'll ever do another episode. And so he took that idea and he ran with it. And first, he had his own website and he would do Broken Mirror contests on there. And then when he went to college, he started doing Broken Mirror contests at his school. And just recently he sent me an ad. He's at the University of Texas, Arlington, Department of English, Broken Mirror Short Story Contest 3. And their prompt is, when the smoke cleared, what was left? He just sent me like the little ad for it. And I was just like, oh yeah, I'll enter this. But it's only open to students of the University of Texas, Arlington. And so, yeah, there's no point in me entering it. But still, it's just really neat that we created something and it continues to ripple.
I don't know, man. These days, all the school is online anyways. You could probably easily get registered for one class just so you can put a story into the contest.
Oh, that would be good.
My daughter's going to school several states away, but she still lives here. So it can be done. I don't think she wants to still live here, but she does. Anyway, you had a story in this episode that we're doing here. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned that there were similarities, I guess, to the concept between you and Marshall Latham.
Did you not think so?
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, yes and no. I mean, there obviously are few similarities, but the aliens visiting Earth for, what did they call it in yours? Cultural enlightenment or something like that. They're tourists, it seemed like, more than ambassadors. They're not searching for ambassadors so much as just, I guess, expanding knowledge for their race. That was interesting, there were 6 stories that were running. I think there were just the 2 that involved aliens, unless you count the beefalope.
Oh, shoot. Now I have to find that audio clip.
A what?
Yeah, that I remember. There were
wait.
2.
If you got to find an audio clip, well then what happens if I say the word Damien?
Oh, shoot. I deleted that.
What's your name again?
Damien!
Rectus Dominus.
Can I just say Rectus Dominus myself? Yeah, I remember when I read Marshall's.
Marshall of the New Republic.
I was just like, oh no, he did it too. But they go kind of different directions. I feel like mine is trying to be more comedic than Marshall's, which was trying to be more romantic. And I don't know, there are a couple of things that your story and my story had in common. When I got to the prayer part in your story, I thought, oh, yeah, mine kind of had an irreverent prayer as well.
If I remember right, I think I may have put that prayer in there because we were talking at the time, and you said something about yours having a prayer in there, and then I said, well, I'm going to put a prayer in mine too then.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that.
So it wasn't just by accident that those are similar.
2 mice fell into a bucket of cream.
But yeah, that stupid Catch Me If You Can thing, I don't know why we're talking about my story, but that's not going to mean anything to people. When did that movie come out? Like 2002?
Like 2002 or 3, yeah.
Interesting, because I remember seeing that as at a preview screening. Like, I must have seen that in Sacramento. But yeah, nobody remembers that movie. They're not going to remember the stupid 2 mice fell into a bucket of cream thing, but I just happened to have watched it on like Netflix or wherever the heck it is available with my kids that month. And so it was very recent in my mind. Anyways.
Mine was super long, and it wasn't intended to be, but yours ended up being quite long too. Did it just get away from you, or did you sit down and say, I'm going to write about an hour's worth of a story?
I didn't think about that as I was writing. I did have the idea of having 3 different parts, and each part had to be substantial enough to be worth talking about or whatever, I guess. And I think that's why it wound up being as long as it turned out to be. But things get away from me all the time now with writing. I'm not sure what it is. I think I may just go too big on things all the time. I come up with an idea and then I think of, like, I don't know, all the possibilities or something that can be a part of it or whatever. And then I write all that and I realize, oh, geez, that's way more than I thought it was going to be. And you've always written long to begin with. I mean, it's funny because back in the day, you had such a thing for the Drabblecast, and you really wanted to get Drabbles onto the Drabblecast, and you used to just complain and complain about how much of suffering it was for you to take your story, which, you know, first of all, a Drabble is barely a story. It's more like a prompt for a story. But you take what you did, and it'll be like 400 words, and you're like, oh crap, to make it a Drabble, I gotta get 75% of this out, and you would like cut on it and cut on it and cut on it. Then you're like, oh, it's still 130. And so you cut on it and cut on it, and then oh crap, now it's 99. It's just kind of funny that you always wanted to be on the Drabblecast, doing a Drabble where, you know, those are the shortest possible stories, basically, when that has never been your thing, you know, writing a story. And you always talk about how you write your story and then you go to edit it and you wind up adding more and more stuff. And so every time that you write a story, or every time you edit a story, it doesn't get edited down, it gets edited up. Did that happen with this one? Oh,
I'm sure it did. You know, in the same way as your story, you think about the possibilities. The premise, you go to the family's house and they are all the same person. I guess that there is potential for that. But then I had that idea of there the other 2 suitors also there. And that just expanded the possibilities of the story considerably. Of like, who are these other 2 girls and who are their boyfriends and how can they be different? Then, yeah, just that idea of the parents come in and they are also the girl. Yeah, it got out of hand, and I wanted it to continue and wanted to see what else could happen and what the possibilities were. And so it's probably a lot longer story than it had to be, but I was having enough fun with it that I just kept wanting to add more. And I don't know what real writers do, but that's how I do it.
Right. Now, in our first story in this thing, Rob Broughton wrote a story.
Oh, it's already been broughton.
That
nice comeback, Priscilla. Yeah!
Fit with this year's premise, but also fit with the premise of a child is proclaimed king or queen. And it discovers that it's far too real or something like that. I can't remember exactly how.
That it's more than just a game.
More than just a game. Now, another time our Broken Mirror premise was somebody arrives in town and discovers that everyone there is exactly the same. Your story could fit that premise as well as this year's premise. Was that done on purpose? Did you try to fit both, or is that just a coincidence?
Yeah, it just happened to go that way. I can't remember even where that came from. I liked the idea of that I am really interested in a girl and I end up with an alien that looks like her. And the story just sort of carried me from that point on of, wouldn't it be funny if, because of the technology, everybody looks like her to me? And the comedy just wrote itself after that. But was that our very first Broken Mirror contest?
I don't think so. I think that may have been the second, but I could be wrong. I don't know. It's been way too long for that. I can't even remember August, remember. We talked about that earlier, and so I definitely can't remember whatever, 2009, 12, whenever that was. I was wondering in this story, the alien says that they went to the mall and mapped the girl's brain and became her, but I wasn't quite sure. Did she take over her life completely? What was the character's name now? I've forgotten it. It's on the tip of my tongue. The girl that he likes.
I don't know.
Jillian?
Jillian, that sounds right.
Was like Jillian in a closet somewhere, and they just would, I don't know, feed her with a tube or something like that for the months that she looked like her, or was the real Jillian doing the real Jillian life, but then we had also the alien who, I don't know, was spying on the real Jillian, so she knew that her boyfriend was gone, and she had to pick somebody else. How did that go?
I don't think we really know how the other two did it, but I felt like there was a line there that, yeah, one of them really did just like zap the human and take over their life. But with Jillian, we meet the real Jillian in the very first scene. She's still at the hospital, and this is just someone who has taken her form, and probably had she not broken up with the boyfriend, there would have been a switcheroo, like right before the Christmas Eve dinner. In which case, yes, real Jillian would have fallen asleep and not awakened and, said, oh, shoot, I'm so sorry about, our plans last night. I fell asleep. I don't even know what happened. I guess I was just so tired. And the boyfriend would be like, oh, see, I was going to apologize to you because I did the same thing.
Oh, that would have been hijinks.
Because his mind would have been wiped of the evening in the same way that the main character's mind is wiped in this story. But I wanted there to be like an almost happy ending there with the real Jillian. And so I sort of constructed the story that he comes to in the car, and he gets he gets the closest to a happy ending that a character in one of my stories can get. And so there you go.
Which is to be able to wish Mele Kalikimaka to someone.
And yeah, that just came from last year. We were coming up with these ideas, and that song came on, and I never knew that song growing up. That song was totally alien to me, just like the It's Cold Outside. I never heard that song growing up either. Those are songs from other people's Christmas traditions. But I heard that song the day that I sat down to write this story. And so I was just like, okay, I need to figure out what the line is in that song and incorporate it into the story somehow. And I actually had to look it up. I didn't know the name of the song. Mele Kalikimaka is the... What is it? Thing to say on a bright Hawaiian Christmas day.
That's the island greeting that we'll say to you from the land where palm trees sway. So there was a lot of Christmas songs or Christmas carols in this story as well. Was this a love letter?
An excuse for me to sing?
What, sorry?
Oh, I thought you were insinuating, was this just written as an excuse to do some Christmas songs?
Oh, no, I was going to say, is this a love letter to Christmas songs? Or you like Christmas songs, but you're not like a huge fan. I mean, I think in your blog this month, you complained about somebody who says they love Christmas songs so much they listen to them all year long, and that,
Yes, and that was Jillian that said that, actually. And when I heard that, I was just like, oh, thank God I hadn't heard that last year, because it would have totally affected this story. Yeah, I do like Christmas music in its proper place. And the proper place is like the 10 days or 12 days leading up to Christmas. But when they start playing it in November, when they play it the day after Halloween, I can stand it. It becomes too much. And we've talked about that so much. The arbitrariness of some of these Christmas songs and the ones that get overplayed more than the others. And it tends to be the ones that aren't religious so that, they get played way, way, way more. But yeah, I had this conversation just not too long ago about like the ones that just get played into the ground. And the one that was mentioned to me was All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey. As like, that's the one Christmas song I will turn off if it is playing. And I was just like, oh, geez, that's the one Mariah Carey song I will listen to.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My daughter said that the other day. I think they were doing some kind of a Christmas song countdown on like the Christmas station or something. I don't know if, do you remember when they used to do that back in the 80s? Like the most requested songs of the day countdown, they would do it like every night or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, I loved that stuff.
Yeah, me too. But that kind of thing totally went away. But yeah, they were doing something like that on the Christmas station. And yeah, it got to number 1 and it was All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey. And it started playing. And my daughter's like, please, turn the channel. So I had to turn the channel. I'm not a big fan of that song. I don't hate it either, but I just don't like Mariah Carey much. So I'm fine with skipping it if I must.
Yeah, okay, so answering your question, it is a love letter to Christmas music and the idea of an alien family that thinks Christmas is charming and new. And I really liked the positivity of this family. They do have like the more cynical sister, but it's like Jillian and the parents, they just really like all this stuff. They haven't had time to get sick of hearing the same songs over and over and over again. And you could do it in a different way, or you could certainly have a much more sinister intent behind this. And the premise leads to a very sinister possibility, right? I chose not to go
well,
there,
I mean, it gets to the end where he's falling asleep. And he goes, oh, this is where they eat me, or something like that. And you don't know. It could be just that. They're nice and normal until, all of a sudden they're like, okay, he's almost asleep. Yeah, finally, let's eat. And you don't know if he's going to wake up or not. Is he going to wake up in the other dimension and they've kidnapped him and taken him there? Or, what's going to happen? He wakes up with missing time, which is a common thing for people who say they were abducted by aliens. And I expected, because it's you, I expected something like that to be lurking in the background. Because, I think aliens that look like people that want to eat you is one of those ideas that you enjoy. But yeah, it didn't go that way, which is fine. I do like the way it ended. I liked the fact that he was somehow able to remember weird snippets, little things. It made me wonder, did the aliens allow him to remember those things? Did the aliens, the girl who had mapped her brain, she could have given him all sorts of insights into Jillian's personality and what she liked and what she didn't like so that he could be more successful with the real Jillian after they left. If that's, the way the technology works, I don't know, but...
Yeah, that's definitely a plausible interpretation of the ending. I don't have a definitive answer as to whether she only wiped 98% of his memory so that maybe he could remember this night. But it was all just an excuse to end the story with Mele Kalikimaka. Which I've actually said that to somebody before, and they just look at me.
Look at you like, why are you gibbering?
And yeah, the reaction was exactly that, where I thought, oh, I must have said it wrong. Shoot, why did I try that? But in my mind, it was just like, nobody is going to say Mele Kaliki Maka to you today of the 100 people that are going to wish you a happy Christmas. And yeah, just maybe she does look at him differently because he said that to her. And she's like, wow, he couldn't know, but that's my favorite Christmas song. That's just how it ends.
Yeah, it was fun to see the aliens with their sort of childlike appreciation of stuff. Which I suppose, when you think about it, the people who like Christmas songs the most are children because they're more new for them. And they're like, oh, yay, and they'll sing along to them. And eventually when you get as old and cynical and jaded and angry as...
Say more words.
You and I, then you're just like, here's another version. You know, I've been trying this December to listen to Christmas songs here and there and you know, do a little more of that this year than I did last year or years past. Each year I always try to find something to add to my Christmas music collection. And I can't remember if it was last year or the year before I decided I was going to get, you know, like Guitar Hero kind of Christmas music. So it was heavy metal or like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani sounding Christmas songs. And that was fun. But yeah, I try and do that every year. This year, I've been looking for something. I haven't got anything in particular with the Guitar Hero stuff. I was like, oh yeah, there's got to be something like that out there. Because, you know, you always hear the Christmas Eve Sarajevo song by Trans-Siberian Orchestra over and over and over. And I remember when it was new, I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a cool Christmas song. It's neat to have something new and cool for once with Christmas songs. But that is past. I mean, maybe there's kids that have never heard it before that are hearing it for the first time and doing reaction videos on YouTube that are enjoying it. But I could do without it at this point. I've heard it way too much. But yeah, there's always just the certain thing that they just play into the ground all the time. Like Michael Bublé. Every fourth song is something from Michael Bublé's Christmas album. And Michael Bublé's Christmas album is good, but I don't want to hear it every time. You know, there's got to be more choices out there. There's got to be more things that we can pick from.
Well, we've talked about this 100 times. Every artist, musician, puts out a Christmas album because they sell like crazy and they're perennials. Every year, you know, between November and December, you're going to sell, well, nowadays, 1,000 copies. But it used to be, you know, 50,000 copies or whatever. And so there should be... And you don't have to
write anything for it generally either. You know, it's just do a bunch of covers real quick. Bang that album out in a couple of weeks.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And so you should have 100 different options for Carol of the Bells or for, you know, White Christmas or whatever it is. But it tends to be the same versions that you always hear. That's just me. I mean, I haven't listened to Christmas music hardly at all this year because when we're recording this, it's still too soon. But, you know, like people complain about hearing Wham's Last Christmas over and over and over and over again. And surely there are other artists that have covered Last Christmas to just, you know, dilute the power of that song.
Yeah.
In the same way as All I Want for Christmas Is You, why don't we have a non-Mariah Carey version of that we can hear?
Yeah, the funny thing is, I think Taylor Swift did a version of Last Christmas.
Yeah, she did.
I can't believe that they haven't played that into the ground, because it's Taylor Swift and Last Christmas.
I have heard that version a few times, but it does lack the charm of the Wham version. Maybe that's it. Maybe, you know, they're like, oh, Michael Bublé. It's Bubble, but misspelled. He does the definitive... I don't know.
He does the definitive nothing.
Oh, okay. I was trying to come up with a song where everybody says, nope, Bublé's version is the best one. But like today I heard in Target, I heard some guy, and let's say that it was Michael Bublé. There's nothing wrong with the guy, but F him. Doing, these are a few of my favorite things. When the dog bites, when the bee stings. And just within our adulthood, that has become a Christmas song.
Yeah. That was not
a song that is absolutely divorced from Christmas, from the Sound of Music, and yet now it's part of the rotation, like it's friggin' Linus and Lucy or some god-awful crap, you know?
I complain about Linus and Lucy, too. It's used on every Charlie Brown special. It's not a Christmas song, unless it's also an Easter song, a Halloween song, a Valentine's Day song. What other specials has he had? 4th of July song. I don't know. Whatever else he's done. A You're a Good Man song.
It's Armistice Day, Charlie Brown.
Yeah. I was just thinking that today, the Bangles song, Hazy Shade of Winter.
Is that part of Christmas now?
No, but I was just thinking, you know what? They have kind of jingly jingle bells here and there in it. And it's about a hazy shade of winter. How has it not become a Christmas song? I'm surprised that somebody hasn't done that.
Honestly, what it is that really, really strong guitar riff.
That's probably true.
That has chased away the people from playing that as a Christmas.
And what about God Only Knows What I'd Be Without You? That has all sorts of jingle bells. Yes, that's super jingle bells. From what I understand about that song is Brian Wilson, you know, they recorded their Christmas stuff already, and he really enjoyed all that kind of the sound of the Christmas music. So that's why he used jingle bells and God Only Knows. That could be a Christmas song too. It's got jingle bells.
It's too good to be a Christmas song.
Yes, it doesn't have anything to do with winter, though. That's the other thing, you know. Christmas songs all are Let It Snow. Like, so many of them don't have anything even to do with Christmas, really. Like Sleigh Ride, it's a huge song that people do on every stupid Christmas album. There's no mention of Christmas. It's about going on a sleigh ride in the snow and all of that.
Is Winter Wonderland, does it mention Christmas?
Can't think of it there being any mention of Christmas.
There's always that dark part about we'll have lots of fun with Mr. Snowman until the other kiddies knock him down. As a kid, I was just horrified by that. Just the thought of that. It's like we built this thing and we named it
Parson Brown.
And it's enabling us to have intercourse, and now the other kids have destroyed it.
Yeah, it got you married. That snowman was really important to you. Yeah, there's a lot of songs like that. I guess Jingle Bells, which is probably the one that people do more than any other song, is also not Christmas. Yeah, the Sleigh Ride one always makes me chuckle a little because there is the line in there about there being a Christmas party, except for, wait, no, there's a birthday party at the home of Farmer Gray. They have the chance that it could have been a Christmas party, but no, it's a birthday party.
They blew it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a Christmas song, but there's tons of songs that are like that.
And what's the one that you complain about every year? That goes, there'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories.
That one's at least a Christmas song. Of Christmases long, long ago. Yeah, that's the most wonderful time of the year.
I just love the scary ghost stories thing, that you have a problem with that. We need to bring it back.
Yeah, I used that in one of my Big Anklevich on Toys episodes. Can't remember why, though. But I found a video of Andy Williams singing it and everything, and I included it. And then I got a copyright claim on my video because of that. And it was only like a tiny bit. It was just long enough for the line of him to say, "There'll be scary ghost stories." And I just thought, oh.
You got a copyright claim just from that bit?
It was slightly longer. It was like probably, "There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago." And I got a copyright claim for that much.
But because a droid sensed...
Yeah, some droid just automatically recognizes that kind of stuff. Huh. I think it was R5D4 was the droid that actually did it. And you're in trouble.
He's got a bad motivator.
Yeah, he's got a bad motivator, so that's why he's always...
Were you going to say that, make that same bit?
I was, yeah. Yeah, that's how you know when you're getting a dumb claim, because it's from R5D4. He's got a bad motivator. Anyway.
That brings us to the end of this episode. I hope that people out there enjoyed the story and that you're enjoying the holiday season. I don't know. You and I write one of these every single year, and both of us have goals to put out Christmas collections where people can hear our stories or read our Christmas stories. And so I, for one, am glad that we kept this thing going so that I had yet another one to share.
Yeah. I was going to ask, and I guess this might derail the ending of the episode, have you written your Christmas story for this year, for December?
No, but I wrote one in the summer. So I feel like I'm off the hook.
Oh, yeah.
To be honest, dude, it's just too much work to edit all of these Dunesteefs.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Before the holidays. And so I doubt that I will be writing another Christmas story in 2020.
Yeah, I've been trying to come up with something, a short, quickie, 2,000 word kind of a thing that I can do in a day or two. But I haven't really come up with an idea. Somebody was posted on Facebook the other day where they wanted to see a Christmas movie that was about someone from a small town who came to the big city, fell in love with a hotshot, powerful lawyer who taught them to hate Christmas. And I was just thinking, maybe I should use that as my inspiration for the story. It's just the, the exact opposite of all the tropes of the Hallmark Christmas movies. I don't know. I'm considering it.
No, that sounds really solid. I mean, if that were a broken mirror prompt, it would be fun to write a bunch like that.
Yeah. I'm thinking it could be the companion to reiterating Christmas. It could be reversing Christmas. Anyways, we've come to the end. I mean, I can't say that because it's your show. Go.
No, that's fine. You're right. Look at the time. Oh, geez, I must be going.
But baby, it's cold outside.
But baby, it's cold outside.
Thank you for participating in this with me, and I hope that people have a good Christmas. Despite it being 2020, it would be nice if there was a little bit of warmth and joy at the end of this year.
Yeah, we're doing our best. Usually we give you 1 or 2 episodes at Christmas. 6! Come on, man. You guys better be happy. Get cheerful, gosh dang it.
Let the listeners know how they can support the show if they so decide.
Okay.
And then if they decide not to support the show, suggest that they rethink.
Okay. Well, over on Patreon, Rish Outfield has a Patreon page. And you can go there and you can choose to be the mayor of Chalupa Town, or you can be... What else can you be? There's other things, but I can't think of.
Yeah,
you could be an honorary McGinty.
You can. Yes, you can be sheriff of Trueno, Arizona.
Yeah, you can pick any one of these things. And, that's basically you toss Rish $1 per episode or $2 per episode or something like that. I don't know how high it goes. But, Rish would love it if you were to go over to his Patreon and become a Patreoner, a patron. They don't call them patrons, though, do they?
I do.
Become a supporter, an athletic supporter of Rish Outfield. So, yeah, go check that out. Because Rish loves making the Outcast because he's just rolling in the dough from it. Or no, wait. He would love to make the Outcast if he were rolling in the dough from it.
Thank you. Yes, that Oxford comma really saved us there. And yes, if people hate this show and they would prefer to support the Dunesteef, there is a PayPal button there on Dunesteef.com where they can donate any amount to encourage us to do this again.
That's right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
All I want for Christmas is you.
Oh, that's so sweet. Turn it off.
Greetings. This is fake Sean Connery.
The Rish Outcast is presented under a Creative Commons non-commercial, no derivatives license,
which makes the episodes free to listen to, download and spread around. He's not alone though. The music in this episode was also produced under a Creative Commons license by one Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Of course, that chap is positively swimming in currency and surrounded by the kind of sexually ravenous lassies I was constantly besieged by circa From Russia with Love.
That's just gross, fake Sean. I'll take that as a compliment coming from you.
On your mark, get set, and go.
Bless you.
That was weird.
Did something fall?
Darth Vader and one of the snow troopers just took a dive off of my shelf as I spoke. Of course, sadly, that happens way more often than I would like. At least it wasn't a Funko figure, or their heads would have broken off. Yeah, there's a rack over there.
He put out his hand for me to shake.
Scotty.
Franklin, I said.
Scotty.
Franklin, I said.
Scotty.
He put out his hand for me to shake.
Scotty.
Franklin, I said.
Hey, Scotty.
Franklin, I said.
Scotty.
He put out his hand for me to shake.
I'm Scotty.
Franklin, I said.
I could do it all kooky-like. Hi, Scotty.
I couldn't help myself.
Scotty. Should I do it again? You got enough?
I hear those sleigh bells ringing. Santa, won't you bring me the one I really need? Please bring my baby to me. I don't want a lot for Christmas. Shoot.
I pressed the button.
You're listening to the Dunesteef Audio Fiction Magazine.